Australia's most famous icon, the giant stone monolith of Uluru, is located right at the centre of Australia and serves almost literally as Australia's heart. Uluru is a type of rock called arkose. On the base walk, you can see that the surface is actually flaky red with grey patches. The flakes are bits of rock left after water and oxygen have decayed minerals in the rock. The red is the rusting of iron found naturally in arkose, and the grey is the rock's original colour. Uluru started to form about 550 million years ago. The Petermann Ranges were much taller than they are now. Rainwater flowed down the mountains, eroding sand and rock and dropping it in big fan shapes on the plains. Around 500 million years ago, the whole area became covered in sea. Sand and mud fell to the bottom and covered the seabed, including these fans. The weight of the new seabed turned the fans into rock. The sandy fan became the sandstone of Uluru. 400 million years ago, the sea disappeared. Rocks folded and tilted as the Earth's tectonic plates shifted. Uluru tilted 90 degrees, and over the last 300 million years, the softer rocks have eroded away, leaving the spectacular form seen today. So Aboriginal people of the Anangu tribe lived in the region surrounding Uluru for about 30,000 years. And they have various traditional stories that they use to explain the features and markings on Uluru. The first story is about a greedy and dishonest blue-tongued lizard called Lunkata. And as he travelled towards Uluru, he burnt the country and began the practice of traditional management of the land. At Uluru, he camped in a cave high on the western face, but he hunted around the southern base of the rock, where one day he came upon a wounded emu, still dragging a spear from another hunt. He knew that the wounded bird belonged to other hunters, and it would be wrong for someone else to kill and eat it. Yet this is exactly what he did. He began cutting it up and cooking it. The two hunters that had wounded the emu were not far behind. Seeing the smoke from Lunkata's fire, they came up to him and asked him if he had seen the emu. Hiding the pieces of the bird behind him, he lied and told the two hunters that he had seen nothing. Disappointed, they walked off. But when they located the tracks of the emu, they guessed what had happened. Meanwhile, Lunkata gathered up what he could carry of the bird and raced westwards towards his permanent camp, dropping pieces of meat behind him. The trail he left was easy to follow, and the two hunters caught up with him. They made a huge bonfire under the slow, fat lizard as he struggled upwards on the rock to his camp. He choked on the smoke and was burnt by the flames. He rolled down, leaving strips of his burnt flesh stuck to the rocks. As his flesh came off, he got smaller and smaller, until eventually he became a small, solitary stone at the base of Uluru. The smoke and ash from the fire still stain the side of Uluru's steep slopes. This story reminds us of what happens to the greedy and the dishonest. The second story tells of the Mala, or rufous-haired wallaby people, that came from the north. When they discovered Uluru, they decided that it looked like a good place to stay for a while and make a ceremony. They began to busily prepare for their ceremony. The women gathered food, the men went out hunting, they made fires, and they began to fix their tools and weapons. But in the middle of these preparations, two Wintulka or mulga seed men approached from the west. They invited the Mala people to attend their ceremony at Uluru. But the Mala people said no, explaining that their ceremony had begun and it could not be stopped. The disappointed Wintulka men went back to their people, who, enraged, created an evil spirit, a huge devil dog called Kurpani, to destroy the Mala ceremony. As the dog travelled towards the Mala people, he changed into many different forms, and it was Lunpa, a kingfisher woman, who was first to spot him. She warned the Mala people, but they did not listen. The dog arrived and attacked and killed some of the men. In great fear and confusion, the remaining Mala people fled down into South Australia, with the dog chasing them. And the ancestors of these people are still there today. Lunpa still keeps watch, but now she is a large rock, and the dog's footprints are imprinted into the rock of Uluru, heading towards the south. This story teaches that it is important to finish what you start, and that you should watch for and listen to warnings of danger. The final story occurs on different sides of Uluru, but the deadly battle of Kunia and Liru took place near the Mutijulu waterhole. The Kunia woman came from far away in the east to hatch her children at Uluru. She carried her eggs strung around her neck like a necklace and brought them to rest at Uluru's northeast corner. There, she left the eggs on the ground to hunt in the nearby sandhills. And as she left and entered camp, her path formed deep grooves within the rock. One day, she had to draw on all her physical and magical powers to avenge the death of her young nephew. He had enraged a group of venomous brown snakes who had travelled from the southwest to take revenge on him. They saw him resting at the base of Uluru and rushed upon him, hurling their spears. Many spears hit the rock face with such force that they pierced it, leaving a series of round holes that can still be seen today. He was outnumbered and eventually killed. When news of his death reached his aunt on the other side of Uluru, she was overcome with grief and anger. She raced along the curves in the rock to the waterhole, where she confronted one of the Uluru warriors, who mocked her and her grief and her rage. She began to dance, an immense dance of power and magic. And as she moved towards the warrior, she scooped up sand and rubbed it all over her body. Her rage was so great that it spread like a poison, saturating the area. And in her fearsome dance, she took up her digging stick and she struck the head of the warrior. But her anger was now beyond restraint, and she hit him again and again until he fell dead. He dropped his shield near the waterhole, and that has now taken the form of a giant boulder, where she herself remains a sinuous black line on the eastern wall. The blows she struck created 2 deep cracks on the western wall. This story teaches about the importance of kinship, protection of family, and the consequences of actions.